So welcome, guys. My name is John Lucas, and I'm part of the Last Great First team. And I'm talking with Gareth and Richard, and they can introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Gareth. I'm one half of the team that's going to be crossing Antarctica.
Hi, and I'm Rich, and I'm the other half of the team that will be going out on the ice.
So the last Great First is essentially the first full unsupported ski crossing of Antarctica. We've been planning for 18 months to cross from the outer edge of the Ross Ice Shelf, where the sea meets the permanent ice, to cross the continent via the South Pole, and then to finish on the very edge of the Ronnie Filsner Ice Shelf, at the shores of the Weddell Sea. It's a 2,600 kilometer journey. We're planning on taking 110 days, with absolutely no outside help.
As Gareth says, this will be the first full unsupported ski crossing of Antarctica. What we mean by that is that there'll be no outside help. Everything that we need for the 110 days that we plan on spending on the ice, we will be carrying with us behind us in sleds. It's a full crossing of the continent, so it's from the outer edge of the permanent ice shelves, from the true coastline, and it's going to be on skis, so there'll be no assistance from kites or any other form of aid. So we'll be skiing along, pulling everything we need in sleds behind us, and this is the reason we call the expedition the Last Great First. We see this as one of the last great unfulfilled polar journeys, and it's an incredibly exciting opportunity.
That's amazing. And obviously you guys aren't the first ever expedition to go to Antarctica. There have been explorers before you, and there have been amazing expeditions from the age of Shackleton all the way through to date. How do you classify, or is there a way to know that you are the unsupported ski crossing across Antarctica? How does that work? What is the way of knowing what you are essentially as an expedition?
So most recently, there's never really been a classification scheme for polar expeditions. It's not like climbing a mountain that you get to the summit and then someone logs the fact that you've been there. And only in this last year has the Polar Expedition Classification Scheme come into effect, and that essentially acts as a guide for anybody doing any expeditions within the polar regions, and allows people to classify their own expeditions and then compare it to others that have gone before and after. So using that classification scheme, we will be the first team to actually cross Antarctica from coast to coast, unsupported on skis. And that's in comparison to many other expeditions many other exceptional expeditions that have gone before, but don't fall into that category.
It's certainly worth saying that what we're doing really is standing on the shoulders of the previous polar giants, and what we're trying to do is take some of the amazing achievements that have been done and performed in Antarctica really since the golden age of Antarctic exploration, the era of Scott and Shackleton, and then more recently through the modern explorers. And what we want to do is take that a little bit further, learn from what those who have gone before us have done in terms of their equipment and their techniques and their training regimes, and build on that and optimize it and try and just take it that bit further and achieve the thing that so far has eluded the polar exploration community.
The two of you will be doing the crossing. As you say, you're one half and one half of the Last Great First team, but I would assume that there's logistical staff that are standing by. There's the teams. You can't just go to Antarctica, get on the ice shelf, and decide to ski across the continent. There must be a bit more to it than just doing a it's not a holiday essentially. We're not booking a cruise ship down to the Antarctic Peninsula. So can you explain a bit more about what goes on behind the scenes for an expedition like this leading up to it?
Well, I mean, that's a huge question, John. You know, the answer is an absolutely enormous amount of preparation. And I guess probably the way to think about it is to break it down into kind of major categories. So there's been, you know, we have a large team around us, and it'll be Gareth and I who are out there on the ice. But what we're going to be doing out there really is almost a combination of a huge team effort amongst lots of different people around the world, yourself included. So, for example, is the sort of strength and conditioning arm to make sure that we're in absolute peak physical condition to undertake this. So there's constant physical training. Is the kind of general logistical arm, organising our travel to and from Antarctica, our rescue plans, our you know, the kind of all the things that need to be in place to get us and our equipment to and from the start point and the end point. And there's financial and sponsorship side of things, which is very important. And then there's, you know, how are we actually going to perform while we're on the ice? What sort of equipment and gear we're going to be taking? So the kind of inter-expedition planning side of it. And as I'm sure people can imagine, that what equipment we're going to be taking is key and crucial to our success. So I guess those are probably the sort of main areas the main domains that you could divide our preparation into. It's been a very you know, intense 18 months whilst we try and bring all those things together. And while we try and, you know, what we're trying to do, there's a reason that this has never been done before. It's right at the edge of what is humanly possible. And so we're so aware that every single aspect of the expedition has to be optimized to maximize our chances of success. And so we're trying to be as absolutely detailed as possible as we can in our planning.
Yeah, and just I think that's a pretty comprehensive overview. And just to say that, you know, Rich and I are the ones that are going to be on the ice, but there's 12 people, you know, working very hard, you know, within the sort of the inner team at the moment on all those aspects that Rich was talking about. So I suppose we're the ones that you see, but behind the scenes, there's a whole bunch of people working really very hard to make this expedition a success, and that just is, I suppose, it illustrates the complexity of this expedition and really what it takes to pull it off.
It's amazing, and it is that it's a team effort, and I think that's a thing that goes throughout a common thread through polar history is that it wasn't just one or two people. It was a collective that achieved various expeditions and various scientific breakthroughs and polar breakthroughs. And saying that on a team basis is that this expedition, if I'm not mistaken, is a similar route as to what was envisioned by Ernest Shackleton, but it was the expedition that cost him the endurance and then later became one of the most famous polar expeditions, despite not actually crossing the ice shelf itself. Do you guys, are there any parallels being drawn between the last great first and Shackleton's unfinished, I think it was the Imperial Trans-Antarctic expedition?
Yeah, look, I think that both Rich and I have grown up with those stories, as of many, you know, as of many people, and the parallels between our expedition and Shackleton's are, you know, they're extraordinary. He was one of the first to really envision the crossing of Antarctica, and certainly one of the very first to try. And in the sort of the theme of those first explorers, we will start where the sea meets the ice and we'll finish where the sea meets the ice. You know, modern day expeditions have the luxury of getting in an aircraft and being able to fly from the true coast inland and starting expeditions inland. But, you know, being able to start on the very edge like they did during the heroic age is very important to us. It's a very important aspect of the expedition. And Shackleton's journey and the journey that he envisioned is, it's a driving force behind our expedition. And Rich and I have been talking about doing this for 10 years, and we've talked a lot about those who have gone before and the inspiration that gives us. And what an incredible story Shackleton's was. The endurance, getting icebound in the Weddell Sea and then eventually lost, and turns into one of the greatest survival stories in history. A story of bravery and courage and leadership, and what an example of leadership in adversity, and just tremendous.
Yeah, and I think it's I think you've got to be careful directly comparing these sorts of expeditions. We're doing stuff in a very, very different context now, and as Gareth says, we have the luxury of be able to fly to our start point and be picked up by a plane from our end point. But once we're out there on the ice, whilst our equipment is very different to what Shackleton and used 100 years ago, essentially the kind of underlying motivations and drivers and sort of routine of polar existence are very much the same. In that we'll be out there on the ice, we'll have what we've got with us to survive, and we'll having to use our skills, our physical strength and endurance, and the equipment we've got with us to try and survive in what remains to this day an incredibly remote and hostile wilderness, and the sense that we're kind of building on the legacy of those that have gone before us through the golden age and through and in the modern era of polar exploration, people who achieved incredible things, that being part of that legacy and trying to and becoming part of the history of Antarctica is incredibly exciting.
Thank you so much for the context as to what we're doing or what you guys are going to be achieving when you set out to Antarctica. And I think for everybody listening, there are going to be a few more parts to this series, and we'll get a bit deeper into the that you guys will be taking with you, and what it is that you're going to be setting out to do. So
that's part one of our series on our Antarctic expedition. Thanks very much for watching. In the coming series, we'll be discussing the expedition in more detail. Our motivations for doing it, everything from our kit to our route and our training. We'll cover all those things. So please follow us at thelastgreatfirst.net and on our social media handles. And thanks very much.